guys, it's Marissa here from littlehouseliving.com. This is the third week that I'm showing you my garden, and it's about the 6th week since I got it planted in the greenhouse. And then out in the main garden, it varies from a couple days to a couple weeks. So I thought I would show you what's going on today, and here we go. So, true story. I woke up this morning and my husband went out of the camper that we're currently living in and said, "Hey honey, we got frost last night." So that definitely got me out of bed. I came down here right away, not to the greenhouse but to the main garden, and everything looks okay so far. So I'm hoping that it was just kind of a patchy frost, but so far everything looks good. But definitely gave me some panic since I just put everything else in the ground yesterday. But so here's the inside of the greenhouse. Like I said, this was planted about 6 weeks ago. We have had a lot of cold weather, so it hasn't been super warm in here. So, you know, some of this stuff still isn't that big. But like the broccoli and stuff, it's coming. It looks, the stuff that I split off from the other plants and transplanted in here looks okay. So today is going to be my first garden harvest day, which I'm really excited about. I will be harvesting some of this lettuce. Obviously it's looking pretty good here. So when I harvest lettuce, I come down here and I take the big pieces and I cut them off with a knife somewhere close to the stem. And that's so it will just keep on regrowing until it starts getting bitter and hot, and then we won't eat it anymore. But for now, I'll just come down here and cut off the big leaves with my little paring knife. And yeah, we're going to have chef salads for lunch today. I will also be harvesting some of this kale and some of these other greens here. They are not super huge, but this is the size that we like to eat them at. So I'll do the same thing. I'll come in here with my knife and I'll just cut the leaves right off of there, because we usually don't eat the stem part. So we'll just cut off the leaf part and it will just kind of keep on regrowing. But the kale looks awesome in here, and these look really tasty. So my peas are just starting to figure out their vine. I've been kind of putting the pieces of the plant in there every time I come in here just to try to train it, but some of them are starting to figure it out, so that's good. I want this to get going and start climbing so they're not laying all over the ground. But I was happy this week because the peas that I replanted are all coming up in here, so that was great. If you remember, my seeds have had really poor germination rate this year still. And then over here, I had a couple of the Swiss chard still survive. We believe it was a little wren that came in here and ate off the chard. We found her little home, or at least she was flying through the greenhouse through a little hole in the garden shed, so we got that covered up. It didn't look like she had a nest or anything in here, but she had a way to get in here. So, and then this little row of carrots looks a little pathetic since only about half of it came up, but I'm just going to leave everything in here for now. I still have enough seeds to do a second planting, but now that the weather is supposed to warm up, besides today, I'm probably not going to replant in here again until fall. So what's in here is what's going to be in here for the summer. And then the bok choy looks really good. I'm excited for that to add to some stir fries soon. The only plants that I have left in here are the cucumbers and a couple tomatoes that I decided were too small to go outside. So these actually look really awful right now. So we'll see what happens with those. These are my regular cucumbers, and these are the pickling cucumbers. So, and here, I don't know if you can see our new addition. They're over on the other side of the chicken coop, but we got 4 chickens, and they're all super ornery. So that's fun. All right, so let's go back over here. Here's my little apple tree that I'm trying to bring back to life. We cut off just the dead parts of the stem, and the leaves look really good. So I'm hoping that I can revive this little apple tree and that we can plant it outside again next year. Alright, out to the main garden. It's a little windy today. Okay. So I don't think I had these planted last time, but I planted my grapevines. I guess they're really hard to see, but they do have buds on them, which is really exciting. I bought the grapevines from Stark Brothers, which is where I got a lot of my fruit plants this year, and I've been really happy. These are called a Somerset seedless grape, and they are supposed to be good for jellies and for fresh eating. And then this plant, I went to a greenhouse this week, and somehow this just happened to make it home with me. This is a blackberry plant. I've never grown blackberry before, but I'm hoping that it will grow kind of like a blueberry, because I have grown those successfully. So I stuck it on the other side of the trellis here, and hopefully it'll start figuring out what to do with it, but it looks pretty good. And then I did add some mulch in the garden this week. We're trying to conserve the water as much as we can, and it hasn't been raining, so I mulched several things. So this is, I had some cauliflower and some broccoli that I had bought. I don't know why, because I have more than enough, but I planted them outside in this bed this week, and they look okay. The cauliflower looks a little yellow, but I think it's okay. And then the broccoli looks fine. And then I did take some of the plants from inside the greenhouse and stick them out here, but they kind of look bad, so I'm not sure if they're going to make it or not. But I think either way we're going to have enough broccoli this year. So today I'll be harvesting more rhubarb too. I did another harvest on Thursday last week, and today is Monday. I just keep on pulling out the parts that want to flower out so we can keep on harvesting the rhubarb. I'll just be picking it to put it in the freezer again to make some jelly later on this year. Just one thing that I wanted to mention is, now that rhubarb is fully in season for everybody that can grow rhubarb, make sure when you're pulling out your rhubarb, you actually pull it out. So you kind of grip it down here and then just wiggle a little bit and then pull it out by the bottom. You don't want to cut it. When you pull it out, it tells the plant that I should make more. So when you cut it, it won't tell it that. But if you're pulling it out like this from the bottom, then your plant will keep on producing for a long time. So that's what I'll be doing. And it looks like there's quite a bit here again, so I should be able to get quite a bit. So this is the garden that I planted some carrots in. Nothing is up yet, of course, except I learned that there is asparagus growing in this little part of the garden. So I'll be picking some asparagus today. And I think this is like, it's got to be some kind of purple variety. It's not fully purple, but it's like really purple when it comes out of the ground. And then still pretty purple on the top and on the bottom. So some of these are really huge pieces of asparagus, but there's several in here, and there's several more that are popping up. So we'll pick those today too, and probably stick them on the grill for supper. Alright, here's the beds that I have not had a chance to weed yet this year. This week. This is the strawberry bed. One thing that we noticed this week is that we have flowers now, which is really exciting on some of the bigger plants. Actually, I think there's some on the smaller ones too. Right there. So I'm hoping that we'll have some yummy strawberries at some point. Not enough to do anything with, but enough to enjoy a little fresh bowl with our meals. And then the raspberries are looking fine. If you remember, I think either last week's video or the week before, I showed that some of them froze, and so just kind of been taking off some of these dead leaves, but otherwise they look okay, and they're coming up pretty well. So, and then this made it into my cart at the greenhouse too this week. I don't know how these things happen. They just happen. So this is a nice blueberry plant. We only had one. I would have liked to get two, but this one looks really nice. I also planted it in peat moss, just like I did with the blackberry. That's how I've had luck growing them, because our soil is not super acidic. So hopefully it does well. I still feel like this plant that's in the strawberry bed probably is a blueberry, but I have no idea. So I may have two blueberry plants, I may only have one. I guess we'll find out, and if there's only one, I'll plant some more next year. My corn finally bounced back from the little freeze that it had, so it looks really good. It's coming up in a nice row. And then the beets look like a mess because I can't quite weed in this bed yet, but they're coming up in a nice little row too, which is great. Then let's go over here. So my broccoli and cabbage plants all look good. I was really worried about them because, of course, last night was the first night that I decided to leave the high tunnel off, thinking it was going to be really nice because my weather app said it was supposed to be 40. So that's the last time I trust that thing. But the plants look fine. They don't look like they have any damage or anything. They're not cold. They're not brittle. Like, they look fine. So, yeah, they look really good though, and they're getting really big. I did mulch in there this week, just to kind of slow down the weed growth, because it's harder to get in between the plants and to keep the moisture in there. I weeded in this little kind of sad looking little carrot bed last night, and this is my one zucchini plant that's coming up, but it looks really good so far. I did plant another one, and I planted 3 more over in this bed this week, but they're not up yet. So I planted my tomatoes outside yesterday, or most of my tomatoes. They still look a little sad because they're still trying to figure out what is going on and why they're not in the greenhouse anymore, but I think they'll perk up, and some of them have flowers on them already, so they needed to go outside. But let's see, down here, this is where I planted those beans. Nothing is up yet. Those are the bush beans. Nothing has changed in the raspberry bed over here except that I need to weed today. And then down here, I don't think I had this up in my last video, but we put up a hog panel because this is where I planted the pole beans that I bought by accident. So those, I've got 2 rows in here, one on each side of the hog panel, and then I have 2 more rows of corn in here that's not up yet, but I'm hoping that I didn't plant a ton of corn, but I did plant the whole seed packet, so I'm hoping we have a little bit to either freeze or can. But yeah. Okay. Let's head this way. This was really exciting this week. We learned for sure that this is an apple tree, and it's blooming, so it's just beautiful. I love it. And then I did learn for sure that this tree, also in the garden, is a plum tree. So that'll be exciting. I don't know what kind of plum tree it is, but I really wanted to plant plums, so I'm excited that there's one. This other plum tree that's in here, I don't know, I think it's probably dead. It has no leaves on it, but it has these green parts that look like new growth, so it's kind of confusing, and there is leaves coming from the bottom. So I'm not sure if I should do like I did with the other apple tree and try to work on the stuff coming from the bottom, or if we should just dig it out, plant a different one. I'm not sure. There's one of my raspberries. That is a golden raspberry. I'm excited to try those. Oh, look at this. I did not see this before. There's another raspberry coming up from the ground, so the roots are doing really well, which definitely means I need to weed. Okay, project for today. Alright, I am going to take you out and show you the other 2 gardens. I haven't showed you those yet, but we have 2 more gardens besides this one. And alright, so this is the second garden, otherwise known as the herb garden. I may change its name. I kind of call it the terraced garden because that's what it is. I have a lot of work to do in this garden, and I don't have a lot of stuff planted in here yet, but I wanted to show it to you because it is part of the garden system we're working on. So, and it also super needs weeded today. So in this first, I only have this bottom bed planted, and in here I have green onions which have come up, so those are looking pretty good in some places. And then over here I have just different culinary herbs planted, basil and stuff like that. Not totally sure what's a plant and what's a weed right now, so it's all just kind of hanging out. And then down here at the end is where I planted my onions. Not sure why I decided to plant them in here versus in the main garden, other than I had space. So I always plant the ones, not the bulbs, the ones that kind of just look like a root with the little green coming up the top, and they work really well for me. So we planted about 75 in here, which will be enough for us for the winter without them spoiling. I have a couple more beds in here. I have not planted anything in them, but we did kind of till them up, but they got full of weeds again. And so I'm not sure if I'm going to plant anything in them this year at all. I still have to plant the cucumbers, but I don't know if they're going to go in here. There is a bunch of herbs that are growing up here, but I don't know what they are. So if you know what this is, please let me know. Here's the stuff from last year. Yeah, I have no idea. There is some cool things coming up here. I think these are peonies. That one looks like a peony. And yeah, but this was an herb garden. So I know that there's stuff planted in here. I just have no idea what it is. Oh, here's some more stuff up here. There's these, and they have this from last year. So I don't know what they are or what to do with them. So if you are an herb gardener, especially probably with more medicinal type of herbs, please let me know what those are. Alright, let's head over. This is the last garden, and this is my squash garden. I wanted to have all the squash separate from the rest of the garden because it makes such a big mess. I planted some of the squash inside of these milk jugs and vinegar jugs, and then we ran out, and so we put some of them inside of these cedar shake little things. So in here I have all the squash and the vining plants. So I also have melons and watermelons, which are really tiny right now. So we'll see if those come up. But this is the squash garden. And that is my garden for this week. I will talk to you guys again next week.